obviously we're told, homophobia in Republicans, you are a man of homosexual orientation, homosexual persuasion.
I've never heard it put that way. That was the most professional way I've ever heard it. I'm a man of homosexual persuasion.
Yes, I always try to find a deliberately funny way to say it. You've got to find a funny way to say it, right?
Only after 10 p.m., by the way.
Yes, deliberately. What's an even funnier way? I can't think of one. But yeah.
No, that's felt very British. You didn't want to offend me, but you were also trying to say something very
But I was being deliberately silly as well.
Yes.
But being of that persuasion,
yes.
Are there ever issues in the Republican Party of like, hey, evangelical Christians, for example?
No. Well, no. Are there ever issues? Of course. Are there some individual people who don't want gays to marry? Of course. By the way, I respect someone's religious beliefs as it pertains to marriage or anything else. As long as you're not trying to legislate my beliefs, you're entitled, and I wouldn't force a mosque or a church or a synagogue to perform any ceremony that was against. I would not do that.
That just wouldn't mean either.
Wow, you really a moment ago you were really playing it up here, and then just fully working blue.
Yeah, because I didn't want to appear too stuffy.
I would not force any of those people to perform fellatio on me.
That's in the trailer.
Perform fellatio. So as long as you're not trying to legislate my life, I don't have a problem. So of course, are there people on the right who have traditional, say, beliefs around marriage? Of course there are. Now, first off, it is the law of the land already. I think the Supreme Court decision, because it was based on individual rights, was absolutely correct. The marriage as an institution is not in the Constitution, but individual rights and equal treatment under the law are in the Constitution. So if you're going to let anyone marry, you have to let people marry who they want to marry. But I don't want to get too far in the legal part of it. But evangelicals are very, very interesting to me because it's only in the last 7 or 8 years as I was evolving politically that I started spending more time with evangelicals, and I was getting a lot of invites to evangelical events. I spoke at Liberty University. It's the largest evangelical college in the United States. I spoke at their Sunday convocation. That's 14,000 people. It's a massive event. Wow. You know, I toured with Jordan Peterson for a year. We never did an event that was 14,000 people, and we did massive stadiums all over the place. I fully said my beliefs. I was interviewed by the dean of the school who talked about me and my history and all of those things. Got a standing ovation, spent the rest of the day at the university high-fiving kids, taking selfies all day long. Now, that doesn't mean that every single one of them agree with any position that I have. I'm a little more pro-choice even than them, which actually for a lot of evangelicals, pro-choice is way more controversial or close to home than, say, marriage equality. But I have found nothing but tolerance from that. I still at this point get way more hate from the lefties who are like, Dave, the freaking people on the right hate you and your lifestyle, blah, 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 than I get from anyone on the right, really.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It feels like maybe 30 years ago you might have had more from the right.
Sure.
The fundamentalists and stuff.
Well, the progressives never know when to stop. I'm for progress. Progress to me would always be going to where everyone is equal and treated equally under the law. And then beyond that, you have your own cultural norms, you have your religious norms, your own community's norms, whatever that might be. We have states in America that have different attitudes towards different things. But as long as everyone's treated equally under the law, then I'm fine with the rest of it. The problem is progressives, they just want to progress for the sake of progression. So if you're just always saying, I'm going to progress, well, you might be progressing off a cliff, and I would say that that's basically where they're at.
They do from time to time. Yeah. In the 80s, it was about like adult-child relations. That's what they were pushing for, I think.
I'm sure they're pushing that in some form now. I mean, they just have no moderating effect, or they have no moderating device, I would say, that it's just like, oh, you're bananas, I can be a little more bananas than that, and let's go, because they put tolerance at the top of their hierarchy. Yeah. And that really was the trick. You really have to give them credit. I think you have to give the jihadists and the Marxists, and you guys are dealing with certain versions of this red-green alliance here. Oof. These people, there's a reason they're using the progressives. I mean, Queers for Palestine is very different than Palestine for Queers, but they're being very calculating. It's like, how would you wrangle up a bunch of people? Well, you wrangle them up by using what they think is the most important thing, tolerance and diversity. So use that soft underbelly of liberalism, get in there, take over the host, like the Alien movies, take over the host, and now you have a much bigger problem on your hands. And I think that that's what a lot of European countries are seeing right now. They thought that, there's just like a bunch of weird purple-haired people, and there's some jihadists over here, and they seem to kind of like each other for some reason, even though it does. But they just end up getting beheaded last.